Welcome back to the Fish Files, and I am looking forward to this quick episode. We're looking at the top viewpoint of popular cichlids that you'll find, particularly colorful African cichlids, in your independent pet store. Part of this program is looking at the type of fish you're going to find in the store versus what they're going to look like when they're beautiful breeding size adults, because I think it's very important to distinguish the two, because when you go into the store you're going to see some fairly drab looking African cichlids and you're going to say, well, I heard African cichlids are so colorful, they're like almost like saltwater fish. Some, such as the Mbuna cichlids, are colorful right from the get-go. Others, like the Peacock cichlids, which we'll look at, don't get their color until 3 inches or more. Talking about body length, not tip to tail. There's 2,500 species of cichlids in the world, and most of them, the Africans in particular, come from 3 very large lakes, all in the top 10 size lakes in the world. It's Lake Victoria, Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika. And today I don't think I have any Tanganyikans, but I'd like to do a special episode after, which goes more in depth into cichlids, because that's like a whole different branch of the hobby in itself. And no matter what I say today, there's going to be someone who knows that particular cichlid much better than I do, and I apologize if I don't cover the most salient points about any of these particular fish. But let's start with some Lake Malawi fish that are extremely popular, a little bit on the aggressive side. So if you keep them with peaceful fish, you're going to have problems. That's why people, when they have cichlid tanks, African cichlid tanks, normally keep those as a species tank. They put in different types of species within a family for color, but they stay within that, I shouldn't say species tank, a group tank. And you could add algae eaters, some larger Alestes tetras. There's some tetras that you can put in there. Tiger bar or tinfoil barbs. Tiger barbs, larger tiger barbs. There's a lot of stuff you can mix in with cichlids, but there's a lot of stuff you can't. That being said, let's just say we walked into a pet store and we're looking at cichlids. What's the most popular? Let's start with Mbunas. These first additions to our mini temporary cichlid tank here are red zebra cichlids. They stay this fire red from this size to this size. These guys typically get about 4.5 inches, max 5 inches. These are the red. I'm going to throw in Labrachromis, the electric yellow. And those are the yellow Labrachromis, or they just say yellow labs in the pet store. Again, those always stay a nice vibrant yellow. And let's add a little blue. This is the cobalt blue. So now we got 4 colors. Let's add another one. At least for this family of cichlids, you know exactly what you're getting. Males and females are a bit hard to distinguish from each other because they all have that bright, vibrant color. They have to find each other because they're down in the rocks in Lake Malawi. And Mbuna means rock. So when they call these Mbuna cichlids, we're talking about cichlids that live among rocks in the lower depths of Lake Malawi. And they, because of their habitat, they need bright colors so they can find each other and breed. And also, these fish, because of that habitat, are omnivorous. And they'll eat just about everything. So cichlid pellet, cichlid flake food is perfect for these guys because that usually has a good blend of all the nutrients these guys are going to need. So they're very hardy, very, very, very easy to keep in the aquarium. And as you can see, there's no stress with these guys. I just poured them right in and they're having no problem in their second home, and they're all getting along famously. And the snow whites, if you see, they have pink eyes. That's a bred color. That's albino. So those are the Mbunas. You can find those probably even in Petco or PetSmarts. But these are called Taiwan Reef cichlids. Taiwanese Reef is actually the name of the little area they evolved in Lake Malawi. And these are omnivorous. They'll eat cichlid pellets. You don't have to give them any particular herbivore food like you do with some Tanganyikan cichlids, but you do need to give them a little bit of everything. They grow to a beautiful cichlid, and they'll be priced a little high in the pet store, probably twice as high as your Mbuna cichlids. They're not as easy to breed. They get much more variation in their color patterns as they grow. The males have more color than the females, and you'll see this in many of these cichlid families. And this is one particular case. I think, in fact, at this age, I don't even know if I have a male and female. Maybe someone in the audience can tell from here. but these are called Taiwan Reef Cichlids. Beautiful additions to the aquarium. They can go fine with peacock cichlids and maybe with mabunas and most of the other species of African cichlids. The next fish we have is the star sapphire. This is a fun fish for people to breed, and I get these from a Florida breeder. And just a quick note on breeding cichlids. If you go out and you try and buy cichlids online, you'll see a lot of things that say F1, F2s, F3s. An F1 bred fish means both its parents came from the wild. An F2 bred fish means both its parents came from F1 fish. So you get F3, F4, and infinitum. The mabunas I just showed you a second ago, they're probably like F2 million. So you don't get a lot of wild cichlids anymore from Africa. In fact, there's more threatened species of Malawi cichlids and Victoria cichlids than any other group of animal species in the entire planet, because Africa's overpopulated, it's polluted, and it's overfished. So there's really not a lot to be had from those three lakes anymore, unfortunately. Global warming has never hurt a fish, but overpopulation has killed them. I would say if you see F1s and they're charging an exorbitant price, unless you really know the source, I'd be skeptical about that fish. Also on pricing, the reason I'm showing you these mid-size juvenile species today is because that's usually the kind you find in a pet store. Our producer is going to find nice pictures of these fish when they're adults and breeding age, because they do really color up nicely. But pricing wise, if you go right for an adult, it's probably 8 times the cost of a 2-inch juvenile, because every time you go up an inch in size, you double the price of the fish. That's another thing to remember when you're going out and looking for cichlids in a pet store or online. These are beautifully bred star sapphire cichlids. You don't see the color yet, but you will. This next one's a lot of fun to say. It's called the Niri cichlid. It's named after the president of Tanzania at the time when it was discovered, President Julius Nyerere, since it is associated with the male that discovered it, and I was put at the end, it's Niri. So that's the scientific name of this fish. It's already showing some great color, and you would not believe how pretty these things get in another 2 inches. This one's not from Lake Malawi like the previous ones. This one's, its origin is Lake Victoria. Again, this is probably bred far down the lines. This was these ones in particular were pond bred in Florida. Let's see, a note on keeping these in the fish tank. They're omnivorous, so again, any cichlid pellet doesn't have to be a particular type, but they lean more towards carnivorous than they do herbivores. So just a general cichlid flake or feeding pellet would be fine. And these guys also don't jump. All these fish I'm showing you right now, with the exception of one, the jewel cichlid, are not jumpers. So you can, 99% of the cichlids you buy in the store will not jump, but there are a few that do. So it's still good to ask the pet store owner if you need a cover. But mabunas, peacocks, these Niri, star sapphires, none of those jump out of your fish tank. You do not need a cover. So you can have a nice open tank with beautiful lighting, and you won't have to worry about losing some fish to acrobatic tragedies. All right, the next cichlids we have are juvenile blue dolphin cichlids. They are haplochromous, but they are from Malawi. These are omnivorous. They'll eat same thing as mabunas and peacocks and Niri. These guys grow to look like dolphins. Beautiful blue dolphins with that hump on their head. They don't have the little snout, but they, hopefully, producer, you could find a picture to splice in here, because these do not look like that. But they're very affordable, and they will grow to look like that. And even at this size, they're very, very hardy. Now let's look at the second most popular group of Lake Malawi cichlids. These would be the peacock cichlids. We looked at mabunas. The peacock cichlids are also rock dwellers, but from a different area, Lake Malawi, and they inhabit a region where there's a little bit more life, and so they've evolved to be more peaceful with other lake life than the more aggressive mabunas. So you can keep peacock cichlids with many other species, angelfish for instance, you may not want to mess around with mabunas. You can keep mabunas and peacocks together, but you have to have a lot of space and a lot of rocks. Otherwise, you got a lot of fighting and nipping to the point that stress could cause some disease in your aquarium. Okay, these first are called the orange blossom or kaleidoscope peacock cichlids, Alanicara species. They are hardy. They grow to about 5 inches. They live 8 to 10 years. Most of these fish I'm showing live 8 to 10 years. And so they're hardy, they live long, and you can see there's so many differences between these species that you can really have some, even though they're all African cichlids, you can really have a lot of variety within the tank. I do want to point out, you can see the great coloration in these particular peacock cichlids. Most of them at this size did not have these colors. It's just in the warehouse I happen to have these two to grab. But if you get the reds, the yellows, the blue peacocks, eurekas, at 2 inches there's like almost no color. It's very difficult to even distinguish males from females. At 3 inches the males have quite a bit of color and the females not so much. They're a bit drab actually. However, when you put 6 males together in a tank of peacocks, you'll find one with a lot of color and the other males a little drab, because the dominant male is going to be beaten up on the other guy, so they're going to look like they're females, so he doesn't go after him quite so badly. So when you create a tank, just think of the dynamics. If you want to see a lot of color, go ahead and buy those couple of those drab females at the fish store to add to the males, because if you don't, you want to put a whole bunch of males together, they're going to drab up so they don't get beat up by the dominant males anyways. I mean, there's some tricks, there's some foods to enhance the color, and there's going to be a lot of cichlid experts there that I hope contribute to the comments on the show that can tell us how to keep a bunch of males together. We try and give a 50-50 mix when we sell these things wholesale. You know, everyone wants males only, but in life it doesn't really happen. I'm talking about for fish. Here's the other variety of peacock cichlids I have in the warehouse today. These guys are called Sunburst. And Sunburst peacocks have a really bright, beautiful color to them, as you can see. They're similar to the albino peacock, but if you can look closely, they don't have pink eyes. If you like this color, it's going to keep its color and grow nice and big. So in that regard, I happen to grab the two that look most like mabunas in regards to keeping their color from 2 inches to 5 inches. But in general, that's not the case. I'm going to see if I can find a couple people in the warehouse to find a couple drab ones for us, so you see what you'll find in the pet store when you see the reds and the blues, so that our producer here can grab a picture and show you pet store 2 inches, your aquarium 3 inches and bigger, because they all color up. This is a beautiful family of cichlids and much more peaceful than the mabunas. They're not as aggressive. You won't have quite as much action. The mabunas are always chasing each other and fighting each other for territory. A lot of people with cichlid tanks like that interaction, but if you're looking for just beauty and hardiness, these are your guys. So I promised you drab, and so I found some drab ones in the warehouse. These are yellow peacocks. I have 2-inch and 3-inch peacocks, and what you'll see is that 3-inch peacocks, even at that size, they're just beginning to show the yellow. I would also point out though that the kaleidoscope peacocks came from Taiwan. These ones came from a Florida farm. They don't use hormones in the United States. It's illegal to add hormones for coloration to fish in the water, or even ornamental fish. It's not illegal in Asia. These guys though are more Lake Malawi peacock cichlids, but I want to show these to you, not to show off how pretty they are, but to show you how at this stage they're so drab, but they do color up. They do become beautiful yellow cichlids with a lot of highlights in your fish tank. So don't give up. When you go to a pet store and you want yellow and you don't want a mabuna, this is a great choice. But as you can see, I think our producer is going to show you a little close-up on these. The colorization on these is not showing yet. But the advantage of having small fish without color in the peacock family that have not been injected or fed with hormones is that their color is going to be more vibrant and brighter and hold longer when they get older. The knock on using hormones for young fish is, in particular peacock cichlids, is that it can wash out some of the color when they do get to that adult breeding stage. Not all of it, but they won't be as vibrant as if they develop the colors naturally. They just got pushed a little bit too hard when they were young. These are fun cichlids because I think Tanganyikan cichlids are just weird. And they're also expensive, but fortunately, because they're weird and expensive, you have a lot of domestic breeders around the country on these. And you can find these in the pet store and a lot of times online. And the typical size when you buy these from a breeder online is, we call it the 1.25 inch breeder size. It's nice to get these about 2 inches because you know they're hardy. Anything that's 1.25 inches in the cichlid family, unless it's a Mabuna cichlid, is a little fragile. But I'm going to throw these guys all in the tank together. They're all in the same big massive lake. First I'm going to start with probably a more common bred Tanganyikan. This is the Calvus. And there's Pearly Calvus, Inkfin Calvus, all kinds of different variations of bred Calvus cichlids. These are, the breeder at least told me they were Inkfin Calvus. And this is a little bit bigger than the size you typically get from a breeder. They would call these medium. They live a long time. This is a 10-year fish and a very unusual head structure. A lot of character in the face. Typically, the purchase price on these fish, probably just under 30 bucks. At this size, maybe more. But the next one's very interesting too. This one's a jumper though. These are Cyprichromis catumbas, and the Altolamprologus calvus aren't jumpers. These other guys, you can tell by their long, sleek bodies, are jumpers. But boy, when they get like this long, they are just beautiful fish. The next ones I want to drop in are even stranger than these two, and this one's called the Xenotilapia. Particularly, the breeder told me these are Xenotilapia bathyphyllus. And there's a bunch of different variations of this particular fish. These are bottom dwellers. The Calvus are mid-level dwellers, and the Cyprichromis are dithering fish that go all over the place. The bathyphyllus. Those are, they're just strange. They look like, they kind of look like a saltwater goby, but they are cichlid. And all these three species inhabit the same, or come from the same lake in Tanganyika. But these are bred domestically in the United States. Just a couple concluding remarks on these things. All these three Tanganyikan cichlids are omnivorous, and in the case of the bathyphyllus, they're completely carnivores. A good mix was, if you had all these in the tank, I would put some frozen food along with cichlid pellets for these guys. Keep a cover on for the Cyprichromis. It's also called a sardine fish, that long narrow one, because they get about 4.5 inches and they look like colorful sardines. Don't eat them. So this is just the surface of the cichlids from those three regions of Africa, and there are so many more details we could go into on these incredible fish from Lake Malawi, Victoria, and Tanganyika. And if you haven't fish tank, a nice community fish tank, I would really recommend getting a second tank, having a nice, aggressive, active cichlid tank, because it's just a whole different part of the hobby, and yeah, it just brings a little more enjoyment into the living room, or garage, or bedroom, or wherever you put your fish tanks. Thank you again for visiting the Fish Files, and if you want to find any of these fish, you won't find these in the national chains, but you can find these in most of your very good, reputable, independent pet stores, or you can go to aquariumfish.com, and they should have most of these species in stock at any point in time. And thank you again. And most importantly, if you don't have a community tank or a cichlid tank, get a fish tank.